Welcome to the Founder Experience, where we're charting the unpredictable waters of startup ventures. I'm Nathan Williams.
And I'm Alex Gutjahr.
Alex, in January of this year, I was at CES Las Vegas, and I was presenting at a booth with a partner company of mine. And we were presenting our product together and presenting our partnership and trying to meet customers. We walked out of the event one evening, and some people came up to us and they said, "Hi, do you want to come to a party?" And I was intrigued, and my friends I was with were like, "Go away, weirdos!" And I was like, "No, hold on. Tell us, what party are you going to?" He's like, "Well, it's a media event," they said. And I said, "A media event," and it sounded very sketchy. These people didn't speak very much English. They were clearly Chinese, and they said it's a media event, and we're going over there. There's a bus. You just have to come with us. And
Okay.
I said, "Guys, we have to get on this bus." They look at me and they were like, "Are you insane? Random person comes to us and says, get on sketchy bus to go to sketchy party in the middle of a city we don't know, and you say we got to get." I was like, "Trust me, always get on the bus." So we got on the bus. There were like 10 people maybe that went on the bus to this party. We got off. What happened was we ended up at a house that had been rented somewhere in the suburbs of Las Vegas. And we walk in and they had a beautiful pool outside, and there were maybe 5 or 6 brands of companies that were trying to launch a new product, and maybe 5 or 6 of them had set up little displays in this house. And they had full catering, they had open bar, there was food, and there was maybe 20 people there. Each one of us walked away with a brand new demo gimbal, which is a tripod that holds, it's a steady cam basically, that was worth about 300 euros each. And we all walked away with one. We all got different, my friend walked away with some beautiful headphones that they were giving away as a promotion. We found out the reason we were invited was that these companies had hired a promotion company to get influencers to go to this event. And the promotion company didn't know what they were doing, and they couldn't find enough influencers. The idea was everyone would go and walk away with a gimbal and then walk around the CES Las Vegas all the rest of the day with the branded gimbals and then take their photos. They had no idea what they were doing, and they didn't get enough influencers, so they just invited anyone. And I smelled it. I smelled it a mile away, and I said, "We gotta get on this bus, guys. This smells like it." So I lead with this story to say, always get on the bus. I guess what I would say is that oftentimes you don't know what's going to happen when you go to an unknown event or a party. But you know that nothing will happen unless you go. Have you ever had a similar situation?
Well, it's funny that you're asking, because I had something similar. Just speaking about an event. So with my initial company, the software agency, we attended Web Summit in Dublin. And we were exhibiting there in the startup area. And we also had someone invite us to some sort of after party, and we had no idea where this is going. So I don't even know, we maybe had 5 people over there, and we got invited to this party out of nowhere, and was like, well, we got nothing better to do anyway, so let's just show up. So we went there. It was also in the inner city, and we came and was invite only. We came in. and it was like a like a s- like a small concert hall. I'm not sure what the location was. I can find out. But we came in there, and then turned out the party was from PayPal, and then
Mm.
they had like we were just standing down there, and then at some point a band appeared really close by and started playing. Turned out it was Clean Bandit, which are not that unfamous, and it was like they were just standing. It was a private event, and we had all the investors came there because we also pitched there, which is a whole other story. And then all the investors, even the ones we spoke to during the day, were just there. We could then approach them in a more casual manner. And this was also really really fun because we had no expectations. It was just let's go there and turn up, and it was a really nice evening. Like for the whole team, like everyone even had fun, right? We brought employees, and they said this was a really nice evening. So no expectations, big surprise, and yeah, I would agree. Sometimes you just have to follow these things where you don't know where they're going to lead, but usually you have very limited downside and a high upside, right? Because it might take a little bit of your time. Well, though I would argue, being in Las Vegas, getting on a bus,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
maybe
I didn't lose a
some
kid.
risk.
There was a downside risk, but
I see. Yeah, that I would agree to. But yeah, in our case, we just said, okay, we're gonna go there. It's in the city. Why not? No plans for the evening, and then it was great fun. So, and I think this does not just apply for these events, but generally when you take shots, right? Whether that's coming up with a new idea, just trying something that even might seem stupid, or whether you don't immediately see the upside of where this is going, but trying nevertheless. At the very least, you have a good story to present, right? So I would agree. It's worth taking the shot.
and what is a founder's job other than having stories to tell, right? Crafting the story. Um, I would argue that in all cases, when you take a shot and go to the party, so to speak, the metaphorical party, but really literally go to parties, quite literally, that you never know what's going to happen, but this is the main way that you can break into new areas. What I find is that as a founder, there's a lot of things that have to happen that are very difficult to plan for.
Mhm.
And of course, everyone says you have to have a go-to-market strategy. You have to have a detailed plan for how to make your business succeed, and this is true. However, every time I talk to a founder that has been successful, some of their most important successes have come from some random chance that happened that they were prepared for, and the random chance happens because they've put themselves in a new situation.
Yep.
Is it? And the new situations you can't prepare for. Um, I'll give you an example. With a previous venture, I was once going to a conference, and again, I love conferences for this sort of event because usually you go to a conference with an idea and a plan in mind. But then the most interesting thing happens if you meet someone or you go with a friend and then the friend invites you somewhere and you get to meet new people that you did not expect to meet. And so I was at a conference in Cape Town it was a mining conference,
Mhm.
and I was going and I was trying to meet investors. I was trying to meet potential partners, and um, I was meeting up with one of the people I went to the conference with in a hotel. And as we were sitting and waiting for the rest of our party to join us, we saw a number of people walking in a direction down a hallway. And we were just sort of curious and we had a few minutes to kill. So rather than wait for the rest of our party, we decided to follow the group down the hall towards the conference area. And there was someone standing in front of the door and they said, "You're here for the mining event?" We were there for a mining event, so we said yes. They said, "Okay, go in." Turned out to be an investors event dinner
Oh.
for all of the investors of Ivanhoe Mines. And so, like, this was a fairly a fairly large, successful mining company, and we just were sitting there with all the investors drinking champagne uninvited. And no one minded that we were there. We had a very good laugh with these investors about
Yeah.
how we managed to sneak our way in. But then we started talking with them. And what would you talk with mining investors about? I'll tell you what I talked with them about. I talked to half of them about Bitcoin for 2 hours, and about
Okay.
their Bitcoin investments in cryptocurrency, and because this was what I was doing back then, and I couldn't have planned going to a mining event and crashing a party to talk about cryptocurrency, right? Like it, these are the sorts of things that happen when you have different catch points or different touch points in your conversation, but you open yourself and go to new events and meet new people. It's all about novelty and newness with this approach.
Yeah, I would agree that it always makes sense to get into these situations if you can. But how would you deliberately expose yourself to these situations in the first place, right? Because the examples you gave, you have to be there at a conference, so that would probably be one example. And I would agree that it's usually what happens before or after the event that has most of the value, right? I was exhibiting last week, and that's fine during the day. But I think the most of the value you get from meeting people usually after, not so much before because it starts early in the morning, but after, and then in a more casual, relaxed atmosphere, and then where you have more chance to have these kind of conversations or meet people and then just chat without any expectation, right? Whereas before it's more, there's more expectation to do this on a business level. So, but what else, or what other examples can you think of that where you can expose yourself there apart from just going to a conference or event?
The I mean, the conferences event, of course, are a good one, but anything that gets you outside of your comfort zone. I really like to think that innovation happens when you get different worlds colliding,
Hmm.
right? And so if you're a software entrepreneur, then going only to software events is going to expose you to only software people, and your opportunity for newness is going to be limited. Whereas if you find yourself invited to things that your first reaction is, how is this related? You might be right. It might be pointless, but I find that almost all of the new experiences and the novel, interesting ones happen when you go to things that are outside of your current domain. So when I when I got on the bus, it was to an influencers event. When
Yeah.
I went to when I met those investors, it was a mining event. Um, I'll tell you a war story, Alex, of when I was trying to raise money once. Um, I had talked to a number of investors through a large period of time without a lot of success. I mean, it's a tough thing, as you know, raising
Hmm.
money, especially for an early stage startup. This was maybe about 7 years ago, and at one point, I had met a fellow who I could only describe as just a little bit crazy. Like to the point where I wasn't sure if it made sense to keep talking with him, because he seemed a little bit like he would always like he would always tell me that he was doing an amazing deal with an African government and it was only 2 weeks away from being signed.
Hmm.
And then like 6 weeks went by, eight
And it
weeks
was
went
still
by.
2 weeks.
It's still 2 weeks.
Yeah, I see.
Right now it's been 7 years and it's still 2 weeks, right? So, but at one point we said, look, we've been waiting for you to get this contract signed so that we can start the project and get paid. We're going to go bankrupt in this time. And he said, oh, you guys need money? I'll introduce you to my investor. So he calls up his friend and says, yeah, these guys, you're an investor. These guys need money. This investor, nicest guy you'd ever meet, said that he was investing on behalf of a family office, and yeah, he'd be happy to do it. And he wired us a significant seed round investment before we had sent him the contract. He just
Just
said,
based on the recommendation from that
based
one
on the
person.
recommendation and a single conversation with us. And he said, yeah, well, you'll send over the contract. Okay, I'll do it. Found out later there was no family office. It was his own money. And for some reason, he wanted to be a bit secretive.
Okay.
Like, it's insane. Super nice guy. We've known him for years now. But like, it was just a very, you, you go to the front door of a million family offices for months
Yeah.
and nothing happens. And then suddenly you meet someone that your first reaction is, I don't know if anything will ever happen here, introduces you to someone around the side, and suddenly things break open. There's no way you can plan for that. The only thing
No.
you can do is be prepared for that. If we hadn't been prepared to pitch, if we hadn't been prepared with contract, if we hadn't been professional with an idea of what we were doing, then of course nothing would have happened. But just because they don't look or smell exactly the way you'd think doesn't mean that things can't break loose.
And it's hard to know that upfront or plan for that, as you also mentioned. We had when we had the software agency, I think we had like 2 months of runway at one point, right? Because agency business is quite hard. At some point, people are just looking for agencies and they looking to hire you, and then there are months where nothing happens, right? It's really, and you still have to balance that. And we had a period where it looked really, really bad. We had multiple of these periods actually, but there was one that looked particularly bad.
You
And
wouldn't
we
be a
decided,
founder if it was always rosy.
yeah, but but we had a one situation, and there was a conference in Berlin, and we did software development, mostly Java related. And there was a conference that's still around in Berlin that was looking for sponsors, and we decided to put on some money, though it was really spare at this point. But we said, okay, let's sponsor this and even be one of the bigger sponsors. So we did, and then a few, I'm sure days or weeks later, we had a company calling us that was working with MediaMarkt Saturn, just doing all the in-store, I think the displays and the technology in the background. I think they coined themselves the workbench of these companies. And we had a chat, and they said, we're looking for, we need developers, and we need, I'm not sure, 4 or 5, something around that. We take 4 or 5. I was like, okay. And that just happened. And that saved us in that moment. That really saved us because we had a longer project with them then. So that was really good. And I was afraid at that moment because I'm not sure I learned anything valuable out of that, right? It's like if you hand in the assignment at the last minute and you still get a good grade, it's like, okay, I learned nothing. Maybe next time it can even be more on the edge and I can hand it in later. So I was a little bit worried at this point that, yeah, I'm probably learning the wrong things. But what I want to say here is we also tried this, right? We thought it could work. And we had multiple of these situations where we said, okay, limited downside risk, right? It's the money that we have to spend, but the upside is large, right? Because then someone can see that and then said, okay, because we saw you sponsor this event and we look for someone to help out, and then you get a job. We couldn't plan for that. I mean, we hope that something like this could happen, but you cannot plan for that. But then it happened and it saved us. And I'm not sure if we would have stuck around much longer if it weren't for the one client.
Well, I mean, running any sort of business or founding any sort of startup is a little bit like gambling, right? And when you're like, if you're going to be doing something with an unsure outcome, like gambling, then the best thing you can do is maximize your coverage and minimize your risks,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't want to put everything on a single low probability outcome that has a high return. You want to diversify your risk. And this is part of what you were doing. You know, you've got to be ready for when these things happen. That reduces your risks, and you've got to put yourself out there in order to have these new things come in. Don't bank on any one thing. But if you can't plan for it, it doesn't matter if you haven't learned things, right? Because the idea that a lot of people go into business with is that there can be a formula that if as long as you follow it, you're going to be successful. And that's why people sell books, is that trying to
Yeah.
get as much as possible into a formula. And to a certain degree, there's things that you can do better and that you can do worse. But at the end of the day, there are elements that you cannot plan for. And in order to manage that, always get on the bus.
That's it for this episode of The Founder Experience. If you enjoyed it, do us a favor, hit subscribe wherever you are listening, whether that's Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite podcast app. If you've got a second, leave a rating or a review. It really helps. And you can find more episodes and behind-the-scenes stuff on our website, founderexperience.fm. And if you've got feedback or business ideas that you want us to talk about, shoot us a message at hello@founderexperience.fm. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for hanging out. We'll catch you next time.